Hello. I don't have a good microphone today, so I'm sorry about that. Because there's been an inconvenience. Um, However, as you probably know, um, I got into a big debate recently with Malachi Bugkey and eventually Justin Waller, um, that otherwise known as Juicebox Studios. And unfortunately, I did a really horrible job of defending my position on the Liberty Bell, which, as you know, I'm very opinionated about. Um, that's very unfortunate, but it's my fault because as someone going into a debate, you should prepare. You should prepare resources. You should read. You should catch up on like your knowledge and actually prepare an argument and a rebuttal. I didn't do any of that. It's not 100% my fault though, because I didn't know the debate was happening till probably like less than an hour before the actual debate happened. Um, uh, no, it's probably around an hour, but that's not important. I didn't have really much time to prepare, but I should have at least tried a little bit harder. Anyway, um, it's unfortunate, but I'd like to speak today because I didn't really make it clear what my main argument was, and I had some pretty bad arguments, and I just want to pinpoint one specific reason why I dislike the Liberty Bell and why I think it's inferior to other national monuments. Um, there's a lot of good reasons, and I'm not going to get into those today. That's something for a debate or something for a long form video, which I may do in the future if I have the time. Um, but the essential premise is that the Liberty Bell does a poor job of representing the values it claims to represent. And I think part of that is just because as a monument, which is a form of art, you should do your best to have some sort of signifier within the art that could tell you what a possible meaning would be. So when archaeologists dig up the monument or something, they can kind of get a sense of why it was there or what it meant to the people. For example, a good example of a monument is Christ the Redeemer. Christ the Redeemer is, well, obviously it's a religious icon, religious monument, but it does a really good job of representing what it's trying to represent, the values of Christianity in Brazil. Another good example would be the Abraham Lincoln statue. It represents Abraham Lincoln and what he did for our country, and it's an example of a poor monument, a one that I don't hate, but a bad monument, is the St. Louis Arch. The main reason I dislike it is because it doesn't represent anything. Now, the Washington Monument is another one like that. It's trying to represent something to do with America. Now, I don't like the Washington Monument either. I want to make that explicitly clear. It is iconic, but it's more iconic than the Liberty Bell, which isn't really that hard. But I would like to make it explicitly clear, I do not like the Washington Monument. However, there's not like a specific value, you know? I think when you have a specific value, like Christ the Redeemer, or like the Cologne Cathedral, or Statue of St. Peter, like those are monuments which represent specific values. Hagia Sophia, uh, what is that? The big Hindu temple or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. They have specific values and they do a good job representing them. The central reason why I dislike the Liberty Bell is because it just does a poor job of representing values that it claims to represent. I think it claims to represent values of liberty, religious freedom, um, history of American liberty and freedom. Um, but really, it's too subtle. It's too um, it lacks enough description in itself as an artwork. If you understand what I'm trying to say, it doesn't clearly express itself. Um, and honestly, it's not as bad as I first made it out to be, but it's certainly not a great monument. I don't think that it should have its own national park, certainly. It's a bell. It was made for for some obscure document that does have more historical significance than I first thought, but it's not nearly as significant as deserving its own national park, in my opinion. Um, and it takes a verse from scripture that's quite out of context, I will say. What is it? Leviticus 28 something, 28:11. Um, wait, did I just? I'm not sure what it was, but yeah, that's the gist of it. It just does a poor job, and honestly, I think that's something that we as a society should be confronting. Our artwork is supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to portray um, the good, the true, and the beautiful. And the Liberty Bell, it's trying to portray something that is, at least in theory, good and true and beautiful, but it just does a really bad job. And I think that's the central reason. Um, the real that's the real kicker. You know, there's a lot more, and I think I'll get into that at a later time. But right now, I got other things to focus on. But yeah, I appreciate all the kind words of the few and proud that have stood up for me and stood up for um, the orthodox opinion on the Liberty Bell, and I trust that in the future, many more will come to know the truth of the Liberty Bell. So yeah, I appreciate appreciate everything, and I appreciate you watching this video. So yep, have a good one.